Demon Slayer Kimetsu no Yaiba took the world by storm when it premiered in 2019, instantly becoming a new shonen classic anime, and like every new shonen classic anime, a video game adaptation wasn't just expected, but was inevitable. And sure enough, Demon Slayer the Hinokami Chronicles released. And like most anime game adaptations, it was a generic 3D arena fighter. Reception for this game seems to be split. Some love it, others hate it, and some find it just okay, leaving it with a resounding meh and a minuscule player base. I fall in the just okay camp, thinking that the game focuses too much on its presentation, leaving its gameplay to fall behind, ultimately reflecting the current depressing state of anime games. The Demon Slayer anime premiered in April 2019, and not even a year later, in March 2020, Demon Slayer the Hinokami Chronicles was announced. The game was initially revealed with a simple cinematic trailer that visually looked pretty good, but didn't reveal any gameplay. However, what it also revealed was that the game would be published by Sega and developed by CyberConnect 2. That's right, our good pal Bandai Namco couldn't get their grubby little fingers on the Demon Slayer property. I don't think I need to go over Sega's publishing history, but what was also interesting was that the game was going to be developed by CyberConnect 2. CyberConnect 2 is mainly known for their work on the Naruto Ultimate Ninja Storm series, and if you've seen my Connections video, then you know my thoughts about them. However, Hinokami Chronicles was developed and released well before Connections, so I'd say the majority of people had a fairly favorable opinion of them. Now the trailer didn't reveal anything about gameplay, but considering CyberConnect 2 was developing the game, it was safe to say that it was going to be a 3D arena fighter. And that was proven true more than a year later on June 20th, 2021, when the second trailer dropped, revealing the first gameplay. The second trailer served as confirmation that Hinokami Chronicles was going to be a 3D arena fighter, but also focused heavily on the game's story mode. And to be completely honest, from this trailer alone, it looked really good. The graphics and art style were perfect and looked exactly like the anime. It also looked like there would be free-roaming elements and unique boss fights. And, well, technically both of those things were in the final product, they were far from what fans were expecting. Again, this trailer focused mainly on the story mode, so not much was shown on the gameplay, but from what we could see, it looked to be very similar to the Naruto Storm series, which is divisive to say the least. Storm games are pretty simple when it comes to gameplay, and it seemed like that simplicity was going to translate over to Hinokami Chronicles, but it was too soon to be sure. Then Trailer 3 dropped. Trailer 3 released on August 10th, 2021, and featured in-depth footage of the gameplay, revealing that it was basically another Storm game. Of course, that's a hyperbole, but it was very similar to the Storm games. I'll go more in depth into the gameplay later, but reception was split over this reveal. Players who liked the Storm games liked this reveal, and players who found Storm's gameplay repetitive and simple didn't like this reveal. Who would have guessed that? But the most controversial reveal of this trailer was the character roster. 18 characters, 7 of which were clones, and none of which were demons. That's right, at launch, you were not able to play as any demons in Demon Slayer. Many were quick to write off this game at this fact alone, but some still remained hopeful that they would add demons post-launch, or that the game would be good despite this. Leading up to its release, a fourth trailer dropped, confirming that the game's story mode would go up through the Mugen Train arc. At this time, it was also announced that demons would be added to the game through free updates after launch. While it is a good thing that demons would be added, it's still pretty ridiculous to add them after the fact and still charge players full price for what is essentially an unfinished game. Despite the demon controversy, there's still a good amount of hype surrounding the game's launch. Personally, I didn't pre-order the game and opted to wait until a month later in November when it had already been discounted down to $35. Yeah, I think I made the right move. Demon Slayer the Hinokami Chronicles released on October 14th in Japan and October 15, 2021 worldwide on PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X, and PC via Steam to mixed reviews. A sentiment all too common among anime games. It currently sits at a 69 critic score and a 7.5 user score on Metacritic. It sold pretty well, selling over 1 million copies by December 2021 and peaking at 7,939 concurrent players on Steam in October 2021. However, the player base dropped off hard, peaking at 2,792 players in November, then 1,510 players in December, a fraction of its initial player base. There are some clear reasons for why this drop-off happened, and they align exactly with the criticisms that helped this game receive mixed reviews in the first place. The main reason being an overall lack of content, but specifically in 3 areas: simplistic and repetitive gameplay, a cookie-cutter and tedious story mode, and a frankly unacceptable character roster. So let's dive a little deeper into each of these reasons, starting with gameplay. Hinokami Chronicles gameplay is very similar to Naruto Storm's, which is already simple enough, But Hinokami Chronicles is even simpler. Let's start by covering the controls, which is going to be quick. You can move, jump, block, shove, parry, dodge, dash, light attack, heavy attack, grab, use one of 3 skills, boost, use an ultimate attack, or use a support. The gameplay is incredibly simplistic. You essentially just spam the light attack button and occasionally throw in an ability here and there. This game also just doesn't do anything very unique. Like I said, it's very similar to Storm's gameplay, but Storm has multiple mechanics that make it unique, like chakra management and substitution jutsus. Demon Slayer has nothing. I guess you could argue that the boost mechanic is unique, but it's basically just an awakening that you choose when to use. Now, I'm not saying that there isn't room for high level play, because there definitely is, but for the average player, it's going to get old very fast. There's also some choices that are just kind of weird. For example, if you're playing as a human character in versus mode, then you have to choose 2 characters to play as. There's no option to choose a 1v1. And when playing as a demon, you can only choose 1 character, with no option to choose 2 characters. It's weird because for the majority of the story mode, you're playing as only 1 character, but for some reason we aren't allowed to do that in versus mode. I don't really have much else to say about gameplay because there's nothing to really talk about. It's just a watered down Naruto Storm, which is already simple as it is. The story mode of Hinokami Chronicles seems to be the main draw of the game, and for what it's worth, it's probably the best aspect of this game, but that's not really saying much. The story mode covers the anime story exactly from the beginning of Season 1 up through the Mugen Train arc. It's done in this weird mix between free roam and stages. What I mean by this is that you select a chapter from the story mode screen, and you can play straight through that chapter and get to free roam while doing so. But once you beat that chapter, it becomes stages that you can replay. So now the free roam becomes divided into stages instead of one cohesive world to explore. I like the concept of being able to easily replay boss fights, but this format makes the free roaming kind of pointless. And the free roaming itself is super lackluster. It's essentially just walking along one path from point A to B. It feels less like a gameplay mechanic and more of a way to pad out the story's runtime. The story mode took me about 6 hours to complete, while HowLongToBeat.com gives it 8 hours. And I guarantee you that the majority of that time is spent just aimlessly following one boring trail. There are some extras that you can explore for in the free roaming sections, but they amount to nothing. Every free roaming section is just a slog to get through. The combat is the same as in versus mode, but I do think it works better in story mode, mainly because the fights here are more unique than what you find in versus mode. There are a number of different boss battles that all play differently and have their own quicktime events, which are always fun, but the battles in between those special boss battles get repetitive quickly. There are a couple of mini games thrown in here and there to keep gameplay somewhat fresh, and honestly, I do appreciate those moments, so good job CyberConnect 2. Overall, the story mode is fine. It's got a good amount of well-made cutscenes that make it a nice retelling of the anime, but it's just so boring to play through. I like replaying certain stories in video game format because playing through those stories' events can be really fun, and Hinokami Chronicles is fun to play, but only during the boss battles. I got bored quickly while playing this story mode, and the only reason I beat it was that I could say I beat it. It really wasn't enjoyable. One thing I didn't mention is that from the start of the game, only a few characters are unlocked, and the main way to unlock characters is through the story mode. So if you want to skip the story mode, then have fun playing with a fraction of the characters. Anyways, let's use this as a segue into the character roster. At launch, there were 18 playable characters, 3 of which were Tanjiro, and 6 of which were Academy variants of already playable characters. Let me explain. Basically, there was a series of shorts where there were school versions of the Demon Slayer cast, and for some reason, CyberConnect 2 thought it would be a great idea to pad out the roster with 6 Academy variants of already existing characters, even though they could have just been alternate costumes. All of them play exactly the same as their base form counterpart, except that they have a new ultimate. It's genuinely so dumb. I don't know who thought this was a good idea. Instead of adding demons, they decided to add these. Moving past the Academy variants, the glaring issue is the lack of demons. The only playable demon at launch was Nezuko, meaning that you cannot play as a single villain. And besides the lack of demons, there were just some weird choices, like who asked for Murata? Now to be fair, they worked exclusively with characters from Season 1, and since most of the Hashira hadn't shown off their abilities by this point, they couldn't really include them, but making demons playable from the start would have solved this problem entirely, because there are plenty of demons in Season 1. The weirdest exclusion is Muzan. He wasn't even added after the fact, even though he's the series' main villain. Speaking of being added after the fact, we did get 6 characters added via free updates, all of which were demons. Why weren't they just included at launch instead of the Academy variants? I don't know. Past those free characters, there are also 7 DLC characters, all of which being from the Entertainment District arc. But there was no additional story chapter, which would have been a nice addition. And 4 out of those 7 DLC characters are just more duplicates of already in-game characters. Tanjiro, Zenitsu, Inosuke, and Nezuko. Meaning post-DLC, there are 4 different Tanjiros, and out of the 31 total characters, 11 of those are duplicates. Because the gameplay is so simplistic, every character feels the same to play. There's not much variation between them, and I'm not just saying that because a third of them are duplicates. The character roster was, and still is, really weird. Giving us the demons for free was a nice gesture, but they should have just been in the game at launch. And of course, like every game releasing now, they had to make paid DLC characters to milk the game for all it's worth. I want to take a moment to talk about the main positive of this game, but also how it's a double-edged sword. This game just looks great. As much as I want to, I can't complain about its presentation. It looks like it's ripped straight out of the anime, which is obviously a good thing, but I think it not only resulted in the gameplay being lackluster, but it also created an excuse for the gameplay to be lackluster. CyberConnect 2 is great at making flashy and appealing visuals. This has been clear since Naruto Storm 1. So when it was announced that CyberConnect 2 was developing Hinokami Chronicles, everyone expected a visually appealing game, and that's exactly what we got, but that's also all that we got. CyberConnect 2 focused so hard on making the game look like the anime that they completely forgot to make a competent fighting game. Or maybe that's exactly what they wanted to do because they knew that it would work. If you read the positive reviews for Hinokami Chronicles, the majority of them will be praising the visuals and the fact that it perfectly retells the anime. While some do like the gameplay, you can still find a lot of people who like the game but also call it out for its simplistic combat and boring story mode. This game being a commercial success was simply a matter of CyberConnect 2 flashing some fancy graphics on screen and fans eating it up. There's no problem with liking this game, but even if you like it, you have to admit that they could have given us more content, more characters, just something to justify the $60 price tag. But what's even more depressing is that they didn't even need to go so hard on the visuals to sell this game. All they really needed to do was get their hands on the Demon Slayer license. If you're a fan of anime and video games, then you've probably gone through this before. You watch a new anime, you really like it. You want to get more out of the franchise, so you look for a video game adaptation. You either find one that's already out, or see one that is coming out. It's a 3D arena fighter. It looks kinda lackluster, but you like the series so you buy it anyways. You play it. It is a generic 3D arena fighter. You get bored, and you never touch it again. My Hero Academia, One Punch Man, Demon Slayer, and coming soon Jujutsu Kaisen. It's as if every new anime game has to be a generic 3D arena fighter. Nobody really likes these games. Everyone wants something better, but because they're the only games available for these series, people buy them anyways. And since they're making a profit, companies like Bandai Namco will keep shitting them out. And the thing is, they're not even hiding the fact that they're milking these franchises. Every single new anime game release has a million different editions for no reason. Hinokami Chronicles had a standard edition for $60, a deluxe edition for $70, and an ultimate edition for $90. The game is not even worth $60, let alone $90. And all of these games have a million different DLC packs, so these companies can keep profiting off of them no matter what. I know it's a company's job to make a profit, but they're doing it in the most lazy way possible. Give us more unique games, like Dragon Ball FighterZ, that actually warrant the $60 price tag. I got way off topic here, but I'm just frustrated with the current state of anime games. Demon Slayer: The Hinokami Chronicles was fine. The gameplay and story mode were boring and repetitive, but it looked damn good. It's just really upsetting because Demon Slayer doesn't even seem like an anime that would fit a 3D arena fighter. It seems like a action RPG would be more fitting. But again, 3D arena fighters are cheap and easy to develop. I'm holding out hope for Jujutsu Kaisen Cursed Clash, but it's looking like it's just going to be another generic 3D arena fighting game. All I can do is hope that one day these anime will get the proper fighting game adaptations that they deserve. Before this video wraps up, I just want to say thank you for sticking to the end, and thank you for the support with my past few uploads, which have really been taking off recently. I appreciate all of the support and all of the comments, both negative and positive. I'll take any feedback I can get. I'm always looking to improve and make the best content possible. Thanks again, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Later.